wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan for the invite. Can everyone hear me? Yeah? Okay. So, my name is Shazad Min. I'm a GP from Manchester. I'm also the Northwest Lead for BIMA. So, this is part of a series of talks that we're doing. BIMA stands for the British Islamic Medical Association. So, a series of talks that are being held across different centres within the region. So, this time we've held them at about 12, 13 different centres. And hopefully next year, inshallah, we can improve on that. So, the title is Safer Fasting with Diabetes in Ramadan. We're around the corner from Ramadan, just a couple of days away. And as we all know, it's the month of blessings and the month of mercy, inshallah. So hopefully we can attain benefit from this month. So just very briefly, our vision in BIMA is to unite, inspire and serve. Is to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through a system of character building, professional development and service to mankind, inshallah. So this community awareness talk that we're going to do, there's several objectives. Can everyone see the screen? Yeah. So it's to help and understand get a basic understanding about diabetes, how to test for it and any complications. Understanding of the impact that diabetes can have if you're fasting in Ramadan. It's an education program and hopefully this is something that you can take back and share with your family. So hopefully you can take 1 or 2 lessons from this and hopefully share it with your family, inshallah. So why is it important to learn about diabetes? So I want to make it interactive. So can someone tell me why are we here today? I'm sure you've got lots to do in the afternoon. It's a Sunday, nice weather out there. You've come to the mosque to learn about diabetes. Why is diabetes so important? Any ideas? So diabetes is a condition that will give you numbers later on. So it's very, very common, especially in people of South Asian origin, African origin and Arab origin. So it's very common amongst us. And it helps, coming to these talks, it helps create the awareness. You can learn about what diabetes is. If you know of something, if you don't know of a condition or of a problem, then when you have that, you won't understand or recognize that you've got it. But if you understand about diabetes, if you ever had any problems that may suggest that you've got diabetes, then at least you can do something about it. So that's important about knowing. Prevention of diabetes is a priority. Prevention is stopping you, hopefully you don't develop diabetes. And it's important if you've got family. Just a quick question whilst we're here. Has anyone here know someone with diabetes? Or anyone here not know anyone with diabetes? So no one's put their hands up, so you can see something that affects everyone. Someone in their family. So it can cause serious complications and this can have an impact on your quality of life. And this is really important, the complications that diabetes can cause. So I just want to start off with just some numbers. And the reason for giving you numbers is just to get an idea. So in 2004, 1.5 million people had diabetes in the UK. 2006, 2.2 million. 2010, 3 million. So you can see the numbers are going up. And if you look at it worldwide, they think about 360 million people worldwide had diabetes in 2011. And more than 95% of them had type 2. And they estimate in 2030, about 500 million people will have diabetes in the world. You can see how fast it's growing. And there's about 3.6 million people. So the population of the UK is somewhere between 60 and 70 million. About 3.6 million people have been diagnosed with diabetes. The other important reason I mentioned is to find out if you've got any of the symptoms. 1.1 million people in the UK they think have diabetes but haven't been diagnosed. That could be anyone. So these are people who have not been tested, have not been diagnosed, but they may have diabetes. So there's an estimate, possibly 4.5 million people altogether living in the UK with diabetes or with suspected diabetes. So why is it important to detect diabetes early? It's the 5th most common reason for death in the world. 1 in 8 people between the ages of 20 and 79 have their death attributed to diabetes. So this is going to go up. And they estimate life and death, as we know, is in the hands of Allah. But they estimate in type 1 diabetes, your life expectancy can go down by almost 20 years. And in type 2 diabetes, which is more common, your life expectancy can go down by almost 10 years because of the problems and complications. So this is talking about the Muslims. 1.6 million Muslims in 2001, and the figure's now almost 3 million. And it talks about 4.4% of the UK population. And you've got over 320,000 Muslims with diabetes. I'm sure the numbers are a lot higher than this. So, what is diabetes? I think it's really important that we understand what this condition is. So it's a condition where your body is not able to utilize the sugar. So diabetes is a problem with sugar. You eat sugar, you have sugar in different forms, you may have a drink, you have something to eat, and the sugar goes into your blood. But alhamdulillah, we have a system where the sugar can move because of certain chemicals in your body. The sugar moves into your muscles, into your liver, different parts, and it is stored there. So your blood glucose remains at a steady level. This is a blessing that we have. In diabetes, your sugar in the blood goes up. And this is usually found by doing simple tests. Type 1 diabetes. We're going to talk mainly about type 2, but I just want to touch on type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is where no insulin is produced. And I'm just going to give you a picture. This is what your tummy looks like. So you can see, this is your liver, and then you've got this orange. Can you see this orange? It looks like a leaf, and that's called the pancreas. I think in Urdu they call it dili, I think. Dili? Sorry? Okay. So this is basically where insulin is produced. And in type 1 diabetes, you don't have insulin. And because you don't have insulin, this chemical, the sugars in the blood go up, and you become quite unwell with it. And the example sometimes people give is like a lock and a key. So imagine that door over there behind us, or imagine there was a door here. You have a lock and a key. You have to put the key into the lock, you turn the key, and the door opens. Does that make sense? Yeah? So with type 1 diabetes, you haven't got the key. If you haven't got a key for a door, you can't get into the door. Yeah? So in type 1 diabetes, you haven't got this key. So you haven't got the insulin that's going to cause, so this key is to the liver and different parts where it opens up the door and the sugar is stored. If you haven't got this key, the sugar will just remain in the blood. Keep circulating in the blood and make you unwell. Type 2 diabetes, you have the key, but the lock is damaged. So imagine having a key, someone's tampered with the lock. So you've got a simple Yale lock, and someone's been putting things in, they've put some chewing gum in, and you can't now get your key in. So you've got the key, but it's not working. And this is the example. This is what happens with type 2 diabetes. Does that make sense? Is that quite clear, or? Yeah? So, anyone know any risk factors for diabetes? What are the risk factors? Risk factors being what makes it more likely for you to develop diabetes?
Lack of exercise.
Sorry?
Lack of exercise.
Lack of exercise, good. Anything else?
Lots of sugar.
Lots of sugar? Anything else?
Junk food.
Junk food, okay.
Family history.
Family history, yeah. Genetics, yeah. So good. So you can see lack of exercise, someone mentioned, obesity, your age, as you get older, your risk of diabetes increases. Your race, as I mentioned at the start, if you're Asian, Arab, African, your risk increases compared to the Caucasian community. Family history, if you've got, say, family members with diabetes, then unfortunately there's an increased risk that you will develop diabetes as well. And having certain medications, certain drugs, they can also cause it as well. So this is just talking about symptoms. Symptoms are, what do you feel if you have diabetes? So if you have diabetes, you're going to be, they call it polyuria, you pass lots of urine. So you keep going to the toilet, and when you go to the toilet, you pass lots and lots of urine. So this is one of the symptoms. So if you're having this, then you should always get yourself checked out for diabetes. You're always thirsty. In the night, you know, you're sleeping, and in the night you have to wake up and drink water. Your mouth is very dry. Or in the day, you just have a dry mouth always. Get yourself checked out for diabetes. That could be a sign that you've got diabetes. Weight loss. Suddenly, you start to lose weight. you become very tired, or you start developing thrush. Thrush is like a rash you can get, redness, or white patches in your mouth. Your vision, when you're driving, you can see things clearly now. When you're driving or going out, things seem a little blurred. Again, this could indicate you might have diabetes. And then pins and needles, numbness in your hands and feet. Diagnosis. How do we diagnose? So in the past we used to use blood sugar. So they would look at what your sugars were at the time. So you had a fasting glucose, which means that you've not eaten anything from the night before, and you had a sugar test, and if it was above 7 on 2 occasions, or you had any symptoms, then they would suggest that you've got diabetes. So if you had any of these, and your sugars were fasting were above 7, then that means you've got diabetes. Or if you've been eating in the day and at a random time someone checks your blood sugar and it's above 11.1. But now things have moved on. Nowadays in the UK, they do a test. Has anyone heard of the HbA1c test? Has anyone heard of this? Yeah? Anyone else heard of this test? So this is a test now. It's a new test that we use. It's been used for some time. But it's able to calculate your average sugar. So you don't actually have to be on an empty stomach. So it can tell you what your average sugar has been over the last 2 months. So a very good test. And your treatment is based on this now. So if you have a test done and your reading is above 47 on 2 occasions a month apart, then that would mean you're diabetic. I haven't put in the presentation, but there's a new category now. So these units are quite confusing, because I was telling you if your sugar's above 7, you're diabetic, and now I'm telling you 47, which is a different number. They've used different units, unfortunately. So the 47 is equivalent to about 6.5 on your sugar. If your sugar is less than 6 in the HbA1c, which is equivalent to about 41, then you're normal. If it's above 47 to 6.5, then you're diabetic. A lot of people are in the middle category, which is between 41 and 47, and they call this now pre-diabetes. Has anyone heard of pre-diabetes or been told they've got pre-diabetes? So this means that you're at risk of developing diabetes. So it's not normal, but you're not diabetic, but you may eventually become diabetic. And now in some places they put people on medication, some parts of the world. So it's really important that this is monitored. If you have any suspicions, any of the symptoms, please get yourself checked out. We're all blessed. We've got a great health service. You can have free tests, find out what's going on, and hopefully be treated if there is any problems. And high blood sugars over a long period of time, they can cause serious damage to your blood vessels, and it can eventually damage every single part of your body. And this is why diabetes is so important. If you have a problem with for example, just say you've got acne, a skin problem. It affects your skin mainly. Or if you've got a kidney problem, but diabetes affects your whole body, and we'll tell you how. So, can anyone tell me any complications that they know of diabetes? Any complications? Just say them out loud. Anyone? Tiredness, yeah. Anything else? Any complications that you can develop?
Eyesight problem.
Eyesight problem, yeah. Anything else?
Thirsty.
Yeah.
Dry nose.
Okay. Anything? Yeah.
Vision is down and up down, up, down.
The vision problems as well.
And limb loss.
Limb loss, yeah. Very, very scary and very important. So, this is just telling you, the first thing is your eyes. This is such a blessing. That, this sight that we have. Imagine just walking out of this mosque now with your eyes closed just for 2 minutes. How difficult would it be? Diabetes could eventually lead to eye loss. Sight loss. And this shows you a little picture. This is what the normal eye looks like. But when they take a photograph inside your eye, you can see these little, what they call hemorrhages. Like a little blood vessel bursts. So this can lead to diabetes. So if anyone has diabetes, or if you know anyone with diabetes, please make sure that every year they go and have their eyes tested. If you have an eye test, a simple test, to take a little photograph, we'll send it, and if that picks up anything, you can be treated. So please do make sure, it's important that every year when you're called to have an eye test, have it done. This is really important, nerve damage. People with diabetes, they start having pins and needles. So you could be walking on the floor, there might be a needle there, or a piece of glass.
Yeah.
And because you've lost it, because there's been damage to the nerves, you won't feel when you've stood on a piece of glass. So you may end up with problems with your feet and you won't even feel anything. And what happens is your blood vessels, you can see the blood vessels I'll just come over here and give you a better idea. So if you look at this, the normal blood vessel, can you see the hole? So blood is flowing nicely through, and this is the nerve, it has a nice yellow colour. In diabetes, your blood vessel is becoming narrower. And because that's happening, you can see the colours changing. And because the colour's changing, you don't feel things as you should do. So sometimes with your hands you might not feel things, you might drop things, and with your feet you might not feel things and you might fall as well. Okay, so this is a bit of a scary picture, but it's your feet. And this is what they call diabetic foot. You walk on, you don't feel anything, you develop an ulcer. Some people I've seen in the hospital in the past, they've not checked their feet for a long time, and they come to the hospital and they've got a big hole in their foot. This can go all the way down to your bone as well. And as Brother Nabil mentioned earlier on, this can lead to amputation. So again, big blessing that we have these legs that we can walk with. Your kidneys, they can be affected. So your kidneys are a filter. And alhamdulillah, all day they work, they don't rest. Blood flows through, they filters like a sieve, so it takes out all the bad things and you pass them in your urine when you go to the toilet. The good things stay behind. When your kidneys are not filtering, then good things start to leak out. And this can cause your legs to swell. You can have other problems as well. This is looking at your blood vessels. I showed you a picture earlier on as well. But normally your blood flows very nicely and smoothly through the blood vessel. In diabetes they become narrower. Because they become narrower, you can have heart attacks, strokes. So you can get an idea from this. There's probably nowhere in your body that's not affected with diabetes. And this is why it's so important that we learn. And whatever we learn, whatever little bit we learn, we should pass on to others as well, inshallah. So I always like to have a quiz after a portion of the talk, just to make sure everyone's listening. So this is an open quiz. You can shout the answers out. So the first question is, can anyone name the symptoms that I've mentioned? Symptoms is what do you feel if you've got diabetes? Just say them out loud. Tiredness, yeah. I said
anger. Firstly, anger.
This, yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Pain in legs.
Yeah, feeling, yeah.
Muscle pull.
Numbness.
Numbness, yeah. Yeah, mashallah. Mashallah, everyone's listening, good. Okay, what are the risk factors? We mentioned risk factors. Yeah. Okay. Risk factors. So risk factors mean what do you have that makes it more likely for you to develop diabetes?
Obesity.
Yeah, obesity, yeah.
Lack of exercise.
Yeah, lack of exercise.
Certain race.
Age, yeah. Race. Yeah. Family history, genetics, excellent. So well done, good. How common is it in the Asian population? Yeah, it's quite high. Probably about 20. Very high numbers. Insulin, that picture I showed you, where is it produced? The liver, the pancreas, the heart, the kidneys? Pancreas, excellent. Too much sugar in your blood, is that good for your eyes and kidneys or is it bad for them? Bad. Excellent. And is it important to check your feet regularly if you're a diabetic?
Yes.
Excellent. And diabetes doesn't have complications, is that true or false?
False.
Yeah, it has lots of complications. So, I'm going to talk about two more things and then we'll move on to the second part of the talk. So hypoglycemia, does anyone understand what hypoglycemia is? Unfortunately I put the answer there, but does anyone understand what the word hypo means?
No.
Hypo means low, excellent. Hypo means low, gly means sugar, emia means blood. So just remember it's breaking it down. So hypo means low, glycemic, that means your sugar, and emia means blood. So low blood sugar. Yeah, does that make sense? So that's an easy way to understand. So if it was hyperglycemia, what would that mean? High blood sugars. Excellent. So has anyone ever seen anyone have a hypoglycemic attack? Has anyone ever seen anyone? No? So hypoglycemia, it's very, very scary when you see it happen. I remember at Kisra Mosque, a couple of times, I remember once during Jummah, a chap, he was there after Jummah finished, he was there and someone called me and I went to see him and he was sat there with most of these symptoms. Sweating, profusely sweating, feeling dizzy, and he was quite drowsy. He didn't know where he was. And he was trembling, he was a bit shaky, and he looked a little pale as well. So these are all the things that you can have, when you're having a hypo. So all of a sudden you start sweating, you look quite cold, you're dizzy, you're tingling, and it just looks quite scary when you see it. So if someone's a diabetic, it's important that you give them something sweet. So how do you treat it? So the recommendation is if you're at risk of having hypo or low blood sugars, always keep something sweet with you. It doesn't mean keep biscuits. Biscuits are not very good. But things like jelly babies, 5 sweets, they have lots of sugar. You can get these, I know from pharmacies, you can get these like Lucozade Dextrosol tablets. They're like sugar tablets, and they're just full of sugar. Pure juice or Lucozade. So these are full of sugar and they bring your sugars up very, very quickly. So if you're a diabetic or you know someone who's at risk of having low sugars, if they're on certain medication, then always keep something sweet, something like jelly babies or these tablets. Because if you ever have one of these, take it, you can check your sugar later. If your sugar goes up, say from 10 to 15, that's not going to cause you problems. But if it goes from, say, 8 to 3, that can make you very unwell. Okay, so high blood sugars. We spoke about it earlier on, hyperglycemia. And this is the problem as well that can happen. So these can make you very unwell, dehydrated, and again can cause a lot of the problems. And with both of these you can become unconscious. So again, having it too low or too high can be problematic. Ramadan, this is an easy question. Everyone knows what Ramadan is. But this is a question that we have. So it's obviously fasting in the blessed month of Ramadan, which is just around the corner. And it's important because we want to link the two things together. The first part of the talk was about diabetes. What is diabetes? How do you test it? And what are the symptoms? Now it's just linking it with Ramadan. So we all want to fast. We know the hadith about fasting. The reward for fasting in Ramadan is immense. There's many hadiths about this. So we all want to gain this reward. But unfortunately, sometimes you cannot do it for certain reasons because of your health. So people who have diabetes are more likely to suffer with low sugars, high sugars, or dehydration. But that is if you don't have your diabetes managed the way you should have it managed. If you do, you can fast as like everyone else without any problems whatsoever. So the first thing is, should you continue taking your medication during Ramadan? If I'm fasting, should I carry on taking my diabetes medication? What do people think? Yes, you should do. It's very, very important that you do. Now some treatments, some sugars, some medications such as insulin, I don't know if anyone's heard of gliclazide, some of these tablets can bring your sugar right down and cause what they call hypoglycemia. So it's important that you go to your doctor, because nowadays medication has changed so much. In the past you would have tablets 3 times a day, 4 times a day. Now you can have tablets once a day. You can have insulin once a day. You can have most tablets that you have for diabetes, you can have them once a day. I don't know if anyone here has tablets 2-3 times a day for diabetes, but if you go to your doctor beforehand or see your diabetic nurse or diabetes specialist, they can give you medication that you just have once a day. Have them at iftar time and you can fast as normal. So the recommendation is, again, this is not my recommendation, this is a recommendation by ulama, from international fiqh councils who have sat together, and they've said if your blood sugars fall below 3.3 at any time, you must end your fast. 3.3 is very low. Imagine that Sahri,
Very, very low.
very low, yes. So imagine that, Sahur, you wake up, you've had your meal, you check your sugar, and it's 3.3. Don't fast. You've got 20 hours, 19 hours to fast. You may, go to bed. You may become very, very unwell, end up in hospital. 1, you're going to spoil your own fast. 2, you're going to spoil the fast of all your family as well. And, we need to understand that Quran, Islam has made everything easy for us. It's us that make things hard for ourselves. And I'll come on to the verse in the Quran that everyone knows from Surah Al-Baqarah that talks about fasting and how if you have certain problems, there are exemptions. If you're traveling or if you're of ill health, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us exemption. So please make sure, if you have anyone, know anyone with diabetes, if their sugar is below 3.3 at any time, they should break their fast. And if it's at 3.9 at the start of the fast, then don't fast that day. because it can make you very, very unwell. And this is what the Quran says in Surah Al-Baqarah 183 to 185. I'm not going to read it, but I'll probably just go through a portion of it. The fast is observed for a fixed number of days. If any one of you is sick or on a journey, he should fast the same number of the days. As for those who cannot fast, the expiation is of they should feed one needy person for one fast a day, and whoso does more than this with a willing heart does it for his own good. But if you understand the thing, it is better for you to observe the fast. Now this is very important. So there is the exemption, and it also tells you about the importance and the reward that you get for fasting. So has anyone heard any common myths? Myths are things, what myths means is that they're made up things that people say to you, but they're not actually true. Does anyone know any myths about fasting in Ramadan with diabetes? So here are some. Some people think that everyone must fast and it cannot be missed no matter what happens to your health. This is not things that are made up. I work in hospitals, I work in general practice, and people will come to us in Ramadan. They will be quite unwell and they'll be trying to fast every single day. They'll come with their family will be struggling, they'll have to take time off work, and they feel that they must do it. Yes, there's a great reward, but if you cannot do it because of health reasons, then Allah has allowed you. There's lots of options that have been mentioned in the Quran. Some people feel it's the only way to meet your obligation, and if you don't, it will be very bad for you. And some people think that self-monitoring is not allowed. Again, many scholars have said that you can test your blood sugars during fasting. So if you want to, you can check your sugars, and you can even actually have blood taken. And again, always speak to your imam. People may have different opinions on this, but in general, the general consensus is you can do these things. So the International Islamic Fiqh Academy and the Islamic Organization for Medical Sciences, they produced a very comprehensive, this is a worldwide group, this is several years ago, they produced a comprehensive list and categories of people to assess what risk category you're in for diabetes. So there's 4 risk categories. The red is very high risk. So if you have diabetes and you're in this category, then there's a very high risk of you having problems in Ramadan or when you're fasting. So they recommend that you shouldn't fast. The orange, again, is a high risk. The green is a low risk. And the darker green is a very low risk. So in the green risk, they're the low risk categories where it's okay to fast. So very high risk, they suggest that if you've got type 1 diabetes, if you've been having very low blood sugars for the last few months leading up to Ramadan, then there's a risk that you're going to have problems. Very high blood sugars, if you're pregnant, if you've got an illness, your kidneys are not working properly, you've got very poor circulation, then these are all really complications of diabetes that can make you very unwell if you fast. The high risk group again talks about other problems. If you're living alone, imagine you're living alone, all on your own. You're an 85-year-old person, you're living alone, you're on insulin or the tablets. If you're fasting on your own, and say at 9 o'clock in the morning, you're going through a hypo, who is there to see you? Who's going to check your sugars? Who's going to give you something to sweet? So these are all things that you have to look into before you consider fasting, if you've got poorly controlled diabetes. Then you've got the low risk group. There's lots of new medication out now for diabetes. Lots of new medication that don't increase the risk of your sugars dropping down too quickly. And these are tablets that you can speak to a GP about, your diabetes nurse, diabetes specialist, and they can start you on these tablets that will allow you to safely fast in Ramadan with diabetes. And some people have what they call diet control diabetes. So these people are they're diagnosed with diabetes, but their diabetes is controlled with the diet only. They don't need any medication. And these are usually safe to fast during Ramadan. But again, always speak to your doctor beforehand. So this gives you a little idea. If you seek medical help from your doctor, you can actually move from one category to the other. So if you're on insulin or on a certain medication and you're in the high risk category, if you meet your doctor about 2 months beforehand, you can make changes so that you're able to fast safely during Ramadan. So it's important that you make a plan in advance. At least 2-3 months before Ramadan, you should be planning how you're going to fast. What are you going to be well? Do you need to change any of your medication? Are all your bloods okay? So these are all plans that you should be making in advance. Find out about your sugars, how well your sugars are controlled, And attend some of these. There's lots of talks usually going on around Ramadan about diabetes. Attend these, something like this, just to refresh your knowledge. And this is important. You know, safer fasting is important that you know, and also family members as well, or people that are caring for people with diabetes. And it's about working together, patients, healthcare professionals working together to ensure that people can, hopefully patients can fast safely in Ramadan. And remember, you know, we've been told the physical body is a gift. This body that we have is an amana from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is given to humans as an amana and we must take care of it. So we can't just say, you know, we don't care. We have to look after it. As with everything else, we must be responsible. So just a few, you know, eating tips. It's important. Eat sensibly. You should be doing this all the way around, but Ramadan is always, it's like a kickstart for us. Every year, you know, you have Ramadan, you start, people may have been missing prayers, may not have been reading the Quran the way they should have been doing. In Ramadan, you have this opportunity to restart everything. You'll find in Ramadan the mosque is full. The first of Ramadan, the mosque is, you know, Tarawih will be full. As days goes on, it goes on. Then after Ramadan, you're back to normal again. But for us, it's not about being, it's not a part-time, it's not something, Islam is not part-time, and also looking after your health isn't part-time, that you just do it as and when needed. It's something you've got to do regularly throughout the year. And fasting is not just about, it's about self-control and discipline. You know, this is something that we must remember. And you all know the famous hadith about, you know, it's not about just avoiding food and drink, it's about controlling your tongue as well, and our mannerisms. So this is important. So when we're at work, we should not, we don't want people at work to say, we can tell it's Ramadan because, I mean, I've heard people say at the hospitals, we know it's Ramadan because some of the doctors become very grumpy. So, you know, that's not nice. If people are remembering Ramadan by people becoming miserable, or even at work, we should actually have good manners every time. We should not be grumpy at any stage. Eat 1 or 2 dates. You know, when you're opening your fast, don't have, you know, a big basket of dates and eat 50 dates. That isn't going to do you any benefit. It's lots of sugar. So, you know, it teaches us moderation, Islam. So do things in moderation. Eat a little. And then if you're having fruit juice, have a small amount. And some people think, you know, we'll miss, Tarawih nowadays is about 11, Iftar is about 9:15, 9:30, Sahri's 2, 3 o'clock. We'll miss the Sahur meal. It's really important. One, it's, you know, it's prescribed to us that, you know, it's something we should do. Waking up and eating a Sahur. And it's important. Have something at that time, something with high energy that can keep your sugars or keep you going throughout the day. And it talks about certain foods. Don't be having things like samosas and pakoras, you know, and having a litre of Coke and so on. You're going to be very, very thirsty throughout the day. Water is the best thing that you can have. Reduce the amount of oil used in cooking. And, you know, avoid things like ghee, butter. Again, these are habits that we should try to do during Ramadan, at iftar time. Low salt, low sugar, you know, these things that we all love. You know, mitai and... So, again, it's looking at how can we make these changes and try to make these changes in Ramadan and keep them throughout the year, inshallah. So, what types of drinks should we have? You're going to be, you know, you've got to remember, from what I can recall over the last few years, usually the first week of Ramadan is very, very hot. I don't know if people remember, but usually in Ramadan it's usually very hot and then the summer sort of disappears. So make sure you drink lots of water at, you know, Sahur and Iftar, that you hydrate your body. Because 19 hours of not eating and drinking, you're going to become dehydrated. So make sure that you drink plenty and keep yourself, you know, hydrated. I just put a couple of quotes on. This is a famous quote. Our choices become our actions become our habits, and our habits become our character. And this is by someone who made this quote. So the reason I sort of touch on this is our choices that we make become our actions. And if you look at it from an eating perspective, this is really important for us who have children as well, and for our children. So when you have bad eating habits from a young age, these are going to go on later in your life. So those choices that you make initially for your children or for yourself, they will later on become actions. And when these actions, as they go on, they become habits. So if you're used to every day drinking a can of Coke, having a litre of Coke a day and not drinking much water, these are habits over a period of time that will make you very unwell. So make sure that you make good choices, and this is with everything in life anyway. You have good actions and hopefully good habits, and this defines you as a person. If you're constantly You know, if you've got a habit of eating poorly, you will eventually end up with lots of problems. And remember, too much sugar, it can turn into fat. This can lead to overweight, and this can lead to diabetes. In the past, I remember 10, 15 years ago, we would see diabetes after the age of 40, 50, 60 older people. Now, in the Asian population, we see diabetics, type 2 diabetics in their 20s, early 20s. We see people having heart attacks in their 20s. We've seen, you know, in the past you would think 50, 60, because we all think we're going to live till we're 80, 90. Now things are changing. You know, you hear about, there was a brother recently that some you may know in Burnley, you know, a very young brother. We don't know when these things are going to happen. So we must do everything that we can, you know, to look after our health, inshallah. So just a quick quiz before we sort of finish off. Does anyone remember what hypoglycemia is?
Low blood sugar.
Low blood sugar. Does anyone remember what the symptoms of hypoglycemia are?
Feeling dizzy.
Sweating.
Pale.
Pale?
Sweating.
Yeah?
Shaky body.
Yeah?
Pale. Pain body.
Anything else?
Yellow.
Yeah, good. So you said most of them. What are the risks of very high blood sugar? What can happen to your body if your sugars go very high?
Loss of sight.
Yeah?
Feel sick.
Yeah? Anything else? So you can become dehydrated, you can become very unwell, unconscious. Does anyone know, are there any exemptions from fasting? So is there anything that allows you not to fast?
Pregnant.
Yeah? Anything else?
Real sugar.
Travelling.
Yeah, so sugars are low, travelling. And in the Quran it mentions about travelling and being sick, if your health doesn't permit you to. Do you remember the 4 risk categories, what they were? Yeah?
Very high, very low, and low.
MashaAllah, very clever. Okay, this is the final quiz. I think this is hopefully the last one. Which out of these 6 drinks, I want you to just have a careful look at these drinks. Which of these drinks do you think has the least sugar in them?
No
Water.
Water and Coca-Cola.
Water, yeah.
Water, okay. So who thinks water has the least sugar in it? Okay, most people. Okay, excellent. Which drink do you think out of all these has the most sugar in it?
Lucozade.
Coke? Lucozade? Yeah.
Local.
Lucozade, anyone else? Okay, I'll ask a second question. Which one do you think has the least amount of sugar in it? Second least, sorry. So water is the least. What do you think after? Okay, Ribena or anything else? What do you think has the second? So if you've got sort of top to bottom, water at the bottom, what's just above water? Sorry?
Ribena.
Some-
Milkshake.
Sorry?
Milkshake.
Milkshake, yeah? Anything else? Ribena, anyone else? Any other guesses?
Milk.
Milk? Okay. Okay. Anyone else want to say anything? So this is going to tell you the amount of sugar in each drink. So as you guessed, water is fine, but you'd be surprised. I mean, who thought the milkshake, the fridge milkshake, would have the most sugar in it? So some of these things, some of the drinks that you should always check the contents. But as you can see, Ribena is second. Then you've got Coke. Sorry, you've got Iron Brew, Coke, Lucozade, and then the fridge sort of milkshake. So always check. Sometimes we think we're having something very healthy, and it may not always be that healthy. So I just want to summarize everything that we've discussed today. So you can fast in Ramadan with diabetes. I don't want people to go from here thinking that I've sort of said you can't fast. You can fast in Ramadan with diabetes, but you must seek help from your healthcare professional. Speak to them and make sure the most important thing, which is the title of this talk, that it's safe for you to fast, that your health remains well. Some are not allowed to fast, and you must know this. If someone cannot fast for whatever reason, then it's important that you know that you have exemption, from the Quran. It's not something that you've made up. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made things easy for us. He doesn't want to cause us any harm whatsoever. So we must make sure that we take the most of this. Look after your health. The health that we have. This is such a blessing that you cannot even imagine. Honestly. We see people all the time. Sometimes people have lost their limbs. They can't walk properly. People who've lost their vision. I remember when I went to Pakistan a while back, and here you turn on the switch and your light comes on. You turn on the tap and water comes on. I remember there was a problem with the electricity. And you actually realize the importance of something when you don't have it. So the health, we take it for granted. We can get up and walk, we can walk a mile, we can go to the mosque, we can go whatever we want. But if anything affects our health and we can't do this, then you realize how important your health is. And as I mentioned, encourage children to develop. This is really important, and I think we have to look after our children. Our youth, our children are our next gen. They're our future. We need to make sure that we lead a good example for them. We may have made decisions, right or wrong, whatever they may be, but we have to reflect and hopefully make sure that we can lead a good example and leave good habits for our children, who inshallah are our future, who will replace us here. And nothing is impossible. Even if you have diabetes and you want to control your diabetes, I've seen people who've had sugars 15, 20. Their average sugar is 15, 20. They've brought it right down because they can do it. If you believe you can do it, you will. Remember that. There's nothing in this world that you cannot do. If you believe you can do it, inshallah. So thank you for listening. I hope you've learned something from this. I hope you can take something back to your families and friends. And if anyone has any questions, please ask. I'll try to answer the best I can. Yes, please.
3-4 times.